Hi guys, welcome back. It's Donwozi here, and in today's video I'm going to be updating the Stormzy non-pet Magicka Sorcerer PVE DPS build for the Summerset expansion. So in terms of the overall DPS compared to a pet build, this build that I have made is fairly similar to the pet build. In terms of DPS, the single target is slightly higher, but obviously the AoE will be marginally less. Also, I want to talk about why I'm not using the Sorcerer set in my builds. It's because I want my builds to be a lot more accessible to every type of player, rather than just aiming at one certain type of player. So I still want to be able to achieve end game trials DPS, which in my opinion is 35k plus, while still being able to be relatively accessible. I will be uploading DPS tests with the Sorcerer setup separate from this video, from the build videos, but I want all my builds to feature overland sets or dungeon sets. So without further ado, I'm going to get into the build, and the stats with just a potion up is 45k Magicka, more or less, 16.6k health, 10k stamina, 2,879 spell damage, 58.6% critical, and 1,457 Magicka recovery. The Mundus we are using is Thief, and the food we are using is Clockwork Citrus Fillet. We are also not a vampire, but you can be one if you want. Just remember to scale it down in certain hard trials and stuff like that. I'm guessing you'll know that eventually, like when you get into doing trials and stuff. So now I'm going to go over some food. I do carry double Bloody Mara when I am a vampire, just to be able to scale it down. We are a high elf, by the way, but the primary food that I'm using is Clockwork Citrus Fillet. If you cannot afford that, then use Witch Mother's Brew, and then maybe put some extra points into health. Also, if you're in a really short fight, then I would suggest the Solitude Salmon Millet Soup. This is the max DPS potential. It just has a lot less sustain, so it is better over short burst fights. The potions we are using is Essence of Spell Power, and as you can see, I don't have many left because I've been testing a lot. So basically, this grants you Major Sorcery, increasing your spell damage by 20% for 47.6 seconds. Also grants Major Prophecy, giving you 2,191 spell critical rating for 47.6 seconds, which is basically 10% crit. And restores 7,582 Magicka, whilst also granting you Major Intellect, which increases your Magicka recovery by 20% for 47.6 seconds, which is basically indefinitely. You always have the buff up. So in terms of the gear, on the front bar we are running an elegant flame staff infused with a shock damage enchant. Now the enchants vary. If you're in a group where there is a lot of lightning damage and a lot of concussion uptime, then I would suggest using a flame damage enchant. But as of right now, I use a shock damage enchant. It's entirely up to you. You can also use a lightning staff on the front bar and go double lightning or double fire. It's entirely up to you. I prefer having at least one lightning staff. On the back bar we have a Maelstrom's lightning staff, which is infused with a Berserker enchant. You can also have an elegant lightning staff here, so to keep the elegant 5-piece bonus up at all times. I've obviously made my builds so you can swap the secondary set out for Sorcerer if you so choose. If not, the build still does really well with and without Trials gear and Maelstrom weapons, as you can see by the DPS tests that came at the start of the video. So for the monster set we're using 2 Priests Alhambras, and we're also using 5 Julianos on the body, as you can see, and then 3 elegant jewelry pieces. I do have 3 arcane, and that's because I didn't have enough crystals to transmute to bloodthirsty, but from what I've seen online, the Bloodthirsty trait would be better on one of the pieces, and it is entirely up to you what you want to do. Either have 2 infused, 1 bloodthirsty, or 2 arcane, 1 bloodthirsty. 2 infused, 1 bloodthirsty would be better DPS, but in terms of damage shields, survivability, sustain, and stuff like that, with all them factors, I would rather go with arcane, because the DPS difference between arcane and infused isn't enough for me to warrant losing all that sustain and losing the big damage shields and stuff. We are running a 5-1-1 setup, so that's 5 light, 1 medium, 1 heavy. Ideally the head would be heavy. Well, ideally the chest and legs would be heavy and medium. I do have the head and the shoulders heavy and medium, should I say. Also, for the traits on the gear, I am running 3-piece infused and the rest divine. So the big piece is infused and the small piece is divine. So that's head, chest, and legs. If you want to go with full divines, it's entirely up to you. Infused just slightly beat out divines for me. Sorry about that. Got hiccups. Infused just slightly beat out divines for me. Plus, you have more max magicka and more, so bigger damage shields again and more sustain. If you feel like you do not have enough health, I would suggest changing one of the enchantments to a triglyph. But as again, that's entirely up to you. Obviously, in most dungeons and trials, one of the tanks will be running Ebon, so you should be fine. And I think that's it for the gear. So now I'm going to go over the skills. On the front bar we have Crystal Fragments, which is particularly useful because of the exploitation passive. Every time when you cast a dark magic ability, you grant minor prophecy to you and your group, increasing your spell critical by 657 for 20 seconds. Basically, you can keep this up at all times, because the chances of you getting a frag every 20 seconds are highly likely, so that's very good group utility. The second skill on our bar, which is not fully leveled up yet, and we still got really good DPS tests, is Elemental Weapon from the Sigicorda skill line. This is the cheapest costing spammable in the game, and it's also very jam-packed. So basically, infuse your weapon with power, causing your next light attack used within 2 seconds to deal an additional 9,220 magic damage, and applying the burning, concussion, or chill elemental status effect. Now, if you don't know what the status effects are, burning adds a damage over time. Concussion gives you, I believe, 8% more damage when an enemy is concussed, and the chilled elemental status effect gives minor maim, which reduces the damage that your enemies do. So that's why I went with this. You can also go with Force Pulse. Force Pulse is still the best DPS, but in terms of sustain, I just preferred Elemental Weapon. Next skill on our bar is Liquid Lightning, and I've had a lot of questions on previous build videos why I am now putting Liquid Lightning on the front bar, and it's because of this passive. Let me just get to it. Expert Mage. Increase your weapon and spell damage by 2% for each sorcerer ability slotted. So Liquid Lightning gives us an extra 6% spell damage. So that's why I prefer it on the front bar, because with this certain rotation and in this kind of meta, you want to try keep your berserker uptime as much as possible and have it up as much as possible on the front bar. That's why we spend much less time on our back bar, so you can get more damage from the when you're in your spammable bar and stuff like that. So that's why we spend a lot less time on our back bar now. So that is even more important, the extra spell damage on your front bar, to get some obviously more juicy damage. The next skill on our bar is Inner Light, and we're using that for the extra max magicka and spell critical rating. And for the next skill we have Bound Aegis, and then Fiery Rage on the front bar. You can also swap either ultimate. I prefer to have Fiery Rage or the Destruction Staff ultimate on at least one of my bars at all times. The reason we got it on the front bar now is because we need the Destruction Staff ability, a Destruction Staff ability on our front bar to have this passive active, which is Ancient Knowledge, and we have a Flame Staff, so Flame Staff increases your damage done with single target abilities by 8%. So that's why we have it on the front bar, because if you don't have an ability, a Destro ability on your bars, then the passive doesn't count. So now to our back bar, we have Haunting Curse. And the thing is with this, you want to, especially with a set rotation, you want to cast it every like 2 rotations, because it blows up at 3.5 seconds, and then an additional 8.5 seconds after that it blows up again. So you want to keep that going. It gives you more sustain, because you don't have to cast it as frequently as you do on a pet build, and also it gives you more damage. So you want to keep this. You want to make sure it hits twice, basically. Just keep it tracked on your buff trackers. The next skill is Blockade of Storms, and the reason I've gone with a lightning staff on the back bar is because Sorcs excel in AoE damage, as I've said in the past. Obviously, pet Sorcs excel more in AoE damage, but even so, Magicka Sorcs in general have the best AoE damage of all classes, and that is still true in Summerset. So that's why I run a lightning staff on the back bar. More trash mobs can get set off balanced, and obviously more bosses can get set off balance faster. And I think off balance is still worth running, especially in like smaller duration fights with like burst fights and stuff like that. Blockade is very useful. And remember, the immunity that bosses get from blockade from like off balance, trash mobs do not get that, so they can always be set off balance. So it just makes it extra useful in like AoE situations. Obviously, if you have healers, if you have 2 healers running this, then I wouldn't suggest it. I would suggest using double fire staff or fire on the back and lightning on the front, but that is entirely up to you. This is just the way I like to run it. The next skill on our bar is Channeled Acceleration, and if you don't know what this is, it is a skill from the Sigicorda skill line, and basically you bend time and space around you to gain Major Expedition, which is not that much important, for 9 seconds, and Minor Force for 36 seconds, increasing your movement speed by 30% and critical damage by 10%. Basically, with this skill, it's Trap Beast, but you don't have to cast it as frequently, and it costs Magicka instead of stamina. So and also you can cast it from range. If you want to conserve Magicka, then I would suggest using Trap Beast if you can get in melee range. If not, then I would suggest using this. You just got to time it. I like to time it in burst phases. I don't like to use it every time it runs out, because it interrupts your rotation, because as you can see, it has a pretty long cast time. So say like you've killed these trash mobs over here, and you go into another burst phase of trash mobs, then I would suggest pressing it again. Or like when you're on the twins and you switch in between the twins because you get colour change, then I would suggest like pressing this when you get over there, just for some more critical damage. The next skill on our bar is Empowered Ward, and the reason I chose this over the other morph is personal preference. It is entirely up to you what you choose. The other one has a bigger shield. This one has a really good shield because they buffed it coming into Summerset, and basically the reason I use it is for in Trials and Dungeons you grant minor intellect to nearby allies, increasing yours and their Magicka recovery by 10% for 10 seconds. So you're not going to be using your shield every 10 seconds, but it is nice when you use your shield to get that extra spike of recovery for you and your teammates. So the next skill on our bar is Bound Aegis. Again, I like to double slot it just to have the Magicka consistent on both bars. You do not really need it. The DPS is slightly higher with it on both bars. Sorry about that. But yeah, you do not need it. If you want, you can slot something like Power Surge, you can slot the Endless Fury or something like that, or something else more defensive, like, say, you could, like something else, like maybe, like Lightning Form or something, Boundless Storm, whatever you want, if you so choose. I just prefer to run it this way because in trials and stuff like that, you will have healers that are dedicated to you anyway, so you don't have to worry about it too much, especially like Power Surge and stuff. On the back bar, so the back bar ultimate is Shooting Star, and the reason I took Shooting Star over the pet, which the pet is probably better for single target and has more group utility, because it when an ally uses the synergy, it grants them Major Berserk, increasing their damage done by 25% for 8 seconds. The reason I choose Shooting Star is from personal preference. I did get better DPS numbers with it, so it is slightly, I think it is slightly better in single target, but overall I think the Storm Atro is better. Obviously, again, that's personal preference, entirely up to you. So that is the skills. Now I'm going to go over the champion points. So the red and green trees are relatively the same on most builds, but I'll still go through them with you. So we have 56 in Warlord, 75 in Arcanist and 64 in Tenacity. We have 34 in Tumbling and 21 in Shadow Ward. We have 40 in Elfborn, 56 in Elemental Expert. We have 31 in Spell Erosion, but if you are at penetration cap, then you do not need 31 points in Spell Erosion. So if you have a really good group with good Alkosh and like Taurugs uptimes and stuff like that, then I would not recommend putting 31 in there. I recommend putting about 22 in there, and then putting maybe the rest in Elfborn, Staff Expert, Master at Arms or Thermitage. So just please pay attention to your what your tanks are running, and if they're running the Crusher enchant and stuff like that. Just make sure you're always paying attention to that and where you are, if you're near pen cap or not. We have 48 into Master at Arms, 75 into Thermitage for the Exploiter passive, which increases your damage done against off-balance enemies by 10%. We have 61 in Ironclad, 26 in Spell Shield, 56 in both Hardy and Elemental Defender. We have 40 into Thick Skinned and 11 into Bastion. Like I said, the red and green trees are personal preference or depend on what trial you are running. Your raid leader will know a lot more about that in terms of what CP setup he wants you to have. So without further ado, I'm going to go over the rotation. So I'm just going to build my ulti up, and then we will get to the rotation. But yeah, this build is really good, and hitting 40k without Maelstrom weapons or Trials gear made me feel really happy. And the 44k with just the addition of a Maelstrom weapon, like, is absolutely awesome. Building ult on a Sorc is disgusting. It's a good job Sorcs have really low ultimate cost. Right, so now into the rotation. So obviously you would start with, if you are soloing it, then you would start with Elemental Drain, which is in place of my shield. If not, then obviously Potion, Accelerated, let me see what it's called, I always forget what it's called. Channeled Acceleration. So you start Potion, Channeled Acceleration, and then you switch bars. You drop your Destro ult, and then Light Attack, Liquid Lightning, swap bars. Light Attack, Wall of Storms. Light Attack, Curse, swap back, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then Light Attack, Liquid Lightning, swap bars. Light Attack, Wall of Storms. Because I did the rotation slow, obviously a Haunting Curse is not ticking, but on the second rotation it would still be going on. So basically on the second rotation you'd finish your 5 from the first, light attack liquid lightning, light attack wall of storms, and then you'd go back to the front bar, and then you do 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is the second rotation round, and then obviously you do the same again, light attack liquid lightning, swap bars, light attack wall of storms, and then this time you would do curse but bar swap cancel it. So it goes something like this. Let it explode. I'm just going to let it explode and then I'll show you it. So it would be potion, acceleration, swap bars, ultimate, light attack liquid lightning, swap bars, light attack blockade, light attack curse. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Liquid lightning, swap bars, wall of storms, swap bars. 1, 2, 3, 4. Liquid lightning, swap bars, wall of storms, curse, back up, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Liquid lightning, swap bars, wall of storms, swap bars. 1, 2, 3, 4. Liquid lightning, swap bars, and then blockade and curse, and that's how it will go. So you would start off with your Destro ult, and then after that the ultimate you will always cast is Shooting Star. Even in longer fights, even in longer single target fights, I would still suggest Destro ult first and then Shooting Star always afterwards. If you are in AoE fights, then I would just continuously use what do you call it? The Destro ult. And that is it. If you guys have any questions about the build, then feel free to drop me a comment. Please leave a like if you've liked the content. Share it with your friends, and don't forget to hit me up on Facebook, Twitter, and most of all Discord. Discord is where you will get the fastest response from me. Just letting everyone know. Also, I do stream at least once a week, either Tuesdays or Wednesdays, so please feel free to join in the streams. I'd really look forward to seeing you all there. And as again, if you enjoy the content, let us know. Thank you very much, guys. I hope you enjoy the build. I hope this guide helps, and I'll see you in the next one, guys. Thanks, guys. Bye.